Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for coming to this mentoring session of the second edition of the FLAD Security Award. Applications for the award are open until the 15th of July, and we will start by the presentations. We have here with us Professor Sabrina Medeiros, Professor Paula Lopes, and Dr. Frank Matthijs, which was actually one of the winners from the past edition of the awards. So thank you all very much for coming. And before we start, I would just like to note that for management reasons, it would be easier for us if you'd pose your questions in a chat. You might start to pose them as soon as you want, but we'll answer them after the end of the presentations. It will be very brief presentations, so you have more time for the questions at the end. So yeah, that's it. And thank you all very much once again. Let's begin then.
Okay, thank you very much. I'll be the kickoff, give the kickoff for the presentation. I'm just going to share my screen with the presentation that I prepare with my colleague Sabrina Medeiros. Hopefully it works. Yes. Yes. Okay, so we will, yes.
My screen doesn't show the presentation. I don't know if it's only me or not.
Anyone else sees it?
Yes. No, I cannot also, Paula. We just tested right before, so
yeah,
maybe you should cancel it and do it again.
I'll stop again.
Yeah.
And I'll try to share again. We just tested this. So window and PowerPoint. No, maybe. No?
Not yet for me.
So should I try it again? Okay, so let's do it. So not sure if you can see the full screen. Can you, Rita?
No, we can only see the small screen like before. So maybe
okay, let's see if I can go through this like this. Now?
It's
no,
still the same.
You can't not do the same. So like this.
Okay.
Would I be able to do
that
it like this? That works? Okay, Paula. So go on.
Okay, you're seeing something? Okay, good.
So what happened here? Let me just.
Okay, I'll just start even. I mean, I can't see anything, but I'll start.
No, now we can see it again. Sorry. Oh, it's back. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just start. So it is a very short presentation, as we mentioned. We just would like to highlight some of the main topics we think are important to take into account in your presentations. The first one is the issue that has to do with the actual scope of your proposal. One of the aspects mentioned is that you should think about the whole of the Atlantic view of security. Even if your project is addressing one dimension or one location or a group of countries, what have you, you should make clear and explain how that is articulated, projects, engages with the whole of Atlantic view of security. So that is an important thing, so that the applications are not too fragmented in what they are proposing. That is something you can address in the introduction, in the conclusion, in which you show how your angle of research, of what you're proposing, engages, projects, contributes to the discussion of a whole of the Atlantic view of security. So that would be one of the first things that we would like to highlight. The second one has to do with the actual structure of the proposal, that sometimes people get, I mean, even us that are more have some experience, sometimes we get lost in our own ideas inside our head on how to organize things. And we would suggest that maybe one of the main thing is to identify your research question. Sometimes that is not easy because we start thinking about goals first, and then the steps, and then things get a little bit confused. Remember, the proposal should be as clear as possible. It may be extremely pertinent and relevant, and Frank will talk about it in a moment, but if it's not clear how you intend to organize things, you lose a little bit when it's being assessed by the jury. So if you could identify, I usually say one research question, but you could have more than one. But if you could have a big one, then from there, you could take the steps of identifying, okay, which goals do I need to achieve to answer this question? And that could be identified as goals, steps, phases, whatever you prefer, but something that gives the reader a logical train of what you intend to do. The other thing that is mentioned is the idea of milestones, things that you need to do or achieve or reach before moving onwards. So if you're doing the field work, that is a huge thing. You need that before you actually wrap up and actually write the outputs and your final report and the publications. So that type of thing gives the jury some assurance that you can't do the whole thing without these specific steps. Okay, so that's a little bit of the idea. And I would still mention, before giving the word to Sabrina, about the outputs. Of course, the actual call mentions some of the outputs, right? It mentions you should include a policy brief, you should include a peer review idea and publication, and obviously the final report. Sometimes in our eagerness to show that we are well acquainted with these dynamics and that we can do things and deliver, we end up putting an endless list of outputs that are not realistic. And our suggestion would be, okay, these are the 3 that are compulsory. You can add some. You can actually, from a policy brief, you can think of doing, something on a blog, make a post. You can actually think about of a conference paper associated with the publication. I mean, from one sort of text, you can try different outlets, right? And so you can, build on these 3 main outputs, but don't overdo it. The jury is experienced, and sometimes we end up unrealistically, I don't know, get very excited and say, I'll write a book in 9 months, and do the field work. It's not going to happen, guys, okay? So try to be realistic on that. Also try to see things that could be a contribution to your own career or to your own plans in terms of what you want to do next or what you are already doing. So you can make these articulations. I think that proposals that actually make these articulations also show a stronger capacity, a stronger potential to have a wider impact. That's what I would say. I will now give the word to Sabrina, and then we'll come back in the end for this. So yeah.
Thank you, Paula, for kind of wrapping up the ideas we just had together, and I'm sure this brings the candidates, a great view of the main points that they should not, they should observe, they should not forget. And first of all, I'd like to thank Licina, which is here, the director for the Atlantic Center, for the invitation in the name of the team. And so thank you again, Licina, for the opportunity. So as Paula just, just talking about our PPT, I'll try to gather some ideas that I selected as kind of complementary to your development or to the development of the project. So in terms of the themes that are that are included in the call, I would say, well, we have as comparative analysis of public policies, we have the link between the environment, security, and development, transnational threats, dynamics of cooperation and competition, capacity building, capacity development, support and exercise of sovereignty, and maritime security, ocean management, and ocean infrastructure security. So all those topics guarantee that we can have kind of macro process in terms of the understanding of the whole process of Atlantic security. And based on this, so kind of, kind of using these topics as parameters, I selected some ideas that generally are in the publications outlets or in international calls that may add to your development. So first of all, about your abstract. So the abstract should summarize the importance of the work, the hypothesis, your major aims and objectives, and of course the major aims and objectives of the proposal, and also the methods to be followed to achieve these objectives and the potential impact of the work.
Sorry, Professor Sabrina, I don't know if it's meant to be like that, but just to let you know that we can see the screen again.
No. It's not. I'm not using by now any sort of PPT. So we kind of concentrated the main ideas, into Paula's PPT, and of course we can share with the audience if needed. So, first idea is about the abstract. So just to let you know that the abstract should summarize the importance of your work. Then I would call for your attention in terms of being explicit about the hypothesis of the research. And of course, the research methods that rests up on the proposal and that needs to be detailed as possible as you can. So as also it is needed that you can fit it to the schedule of the proposed work. So being explicit about your hypothesis and research methods may guarantee that you can fit better in the schedule. And also in terms of the possibilities of evaluating the data that you may also collect. So you must consider space in the calendar for the conduction of the analysis, and of course the conclusions derived from the analysis, but also all sources and time that you may need for collecting and evaluating and organizing the data. So anticipate the time and how you're gonna figure out to organize yourself and the data that you may need is may help you develop your project also, and make sure that your audience, that your evaluators can understand it, so be as clear as possible about it. And of course, if we should consider the feasibility of the proposal, we may also consider the feasibility of your collecting the data in the time that you have for the project development. And throughout the application should write very clearly, as clearly as possible, succinctly, and also follow a kind of outline to support your assertions with references and data. So along the proposal, text, you should also make sure that you have the appropriate theoretical path, describe it in the proposal, but being succinctly focused is the best to achieve a good project development at the very end. Also, let's remember not to promise what you cannot deliver, as Paula just said. So you may deliver more than that you have promised before, but never promise more than you can. And last, I would say something about the budget. So you may not detail the budget in terms of the main activities you may have in the future that are not completely seen or visible for you, but be as specific as you can in terms of the cost estimates of the project, in terms of how you're going to apply your budget, and especially how the budget fits to your impact plan. So last, I would like just to make sure you have in mind that one of the most important parts of the project is your proposal is your impact plan. So how well, in majority, researchers spend time on their cases, on the background, but they rush critical areas such as the impact plan. So some proposals do not have direct impact or applied impact, and so that it is really difficult to consider to have a direct impact after 9 months. But if this is the case, bear in mind that reviewers will always expect from you that you know that your research in the long term will have a pathway that will lead to some sort of application. So review your proposal carefully and make sure that you have impact in the whole objective of the Atlantic Century, of the Portuguese National Defense Institute, and guarantee that you are connected to the whole institutional scene, in which you can integrate, create networks, uphold the Atlantic Central relations with all the stakeholders that may take part of the initiative. So be part of the initiative and make sure that your projects fits into this also. So I'd like to invite right now Frank Mathis, which is an awarded researcher, to talk about his experience, and then we can be back to Paula to make sure we can answer your questions and see what you have in mind right now. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Good afternoon to all. I'm very glad to be here and to see so many people. So I think it's a great initiative. So I'll just commend Dr. Licenia as a coordinator for organizing this and for inviting us. So I was so as I was introduced, so I'll provide a bit of feedback that is largely based on my own experience last year when applying, but also of larger experiences that I have in both in submitting proposals, but also at times when I've been evaluator of different research programs. So I know a bit both sides, and a few things I'll try not to repeat too much of what has already been said, because the presentations before have really grasped the essence of it. I'll just deepen a few points. So as has been said already, I think keeping in mind your audience, it's always is what should be guiding you throughout the process, especially for these proposals. You have a very small audience in the first place, so in this case you'll have 3 people, and that have received very clear instructions of what they should be looking for and what they should be doing. So you can really tailor the proposal to them, but you should also keep in mind that, well, this is a research proposal that also serves a purpose beyond that. So it's something that you write also for yourself. If you whether you get the award or not, once you've put in the work of setting up such an outline, you probably want to implement parts of it. So to have this also as a roadmap for yourself or for partners or potential partners, you can send this through, and they can have an idea of sharing ideas and collaboration. So I think it's not just even though you're writing it for this very specific purpose, it's also something that can serve beyond that specifically. So the jury needs to review a certain amount of proposals. So they have a certain workload to do. So it's always appreciated from their side if you make their life easier, and making their life easier is by making things very structured, that it's clear, okay, where do I find which information, and I don't have, as a jury member, I don't have to dig through the proposals and try to find, well, where could this information be? I'm sure it's somewhere there, but I have to find it. But really to be fairly structured, and the structure that Paula and Sabrina already presented in terms of on the one side, you have your own research project, so the excellence of your project, so showing that you're building on current debates, that you're contributing something to the academic conversation, but also have a section that is specifically more dedicated to the impact that you want to have, and then one part that is more on the implementation side, so on the feasibility, which has already been mentioned. So I'll go quickly through these three parts, and how they can be organized. There's no silver bullet. There's no one template that you need to follow that will bring success, but there's of course an element of adaptation depending what you'll do and what methods you use, etc. But generally, is a good way to start and to help the jury to find out, okay, what is it that I'm going to be actually reading now, is to really start with what is a problem that you want to address, or the puzzle, or what is the overall topic that deserves that you spend 9 months working on it. What is the exact problem that we can contribute to by producing knowledge that is relevant to this? And this can be, of course, in a very wide range of area. The outline of the call for applications has very different topics in there, and there's of course many more, especially since security and defense is understood in this award in a very comprehensive way. So it's not just about traditional hard security, but it's really a whole range of security issues, whether it's energy, whether it's things linked more to economic insecurities and inequalities, but also, of course, still say communication, channels under the sea, so more traditional harder security issues. So starting with a research problem, and then what I just mentioned, showing that you're building on an existing body of knowledge. So you're not going to reinvent the wheel. So you'll have to demonstrate in the proposal, well, I'm aware of what other researches have been done in that area. So these are the main findings that exist, or the main analytical takes that have been done, the main debates, so that you show that, well, you're standing with both of your feet on the shoulders of what others have done before you, but then identifying, okay, which is the areas that I'm going to push forward a bit. What are parts in the literature where there's maybe there's some gaps, or there's things that have not been covered yet, or there's conventional knowledge which doesn't prove to be adequate and fitting anymore in light of current and ongoing events. So something where a contribution would be useful, and based on this, you develop your research question, whether it's one question, as Paula mentioned, or two. This really depends on how you set up the topic, but probably yes, not doing too many of them is certainly a good idea. So, and with this already, you can clearly demonstrate, okay, what is the innovative part of it? What is some things that I'm doing additionally, and then it will really depend on your discipline, on your methodology, how you structure the rest. So you'll have somehow to demonstrate, okay, how am I going to find answers to these questions, where you'll outline a bit of the methods that you want to apply, where you'll talk a bit about data collection, if you're doing data collection, or types of field work that you want to do, whether it's qualitative, quantitative, etc. So there's a part where you also have to show not what you want to do, but how exactly, what type of analysis you'll be doing. And with this, you can already move into quite seamlessly into impact. So these outputs that you produce, so and to have something in mind for the different target audiences of both IDN, the Atlantic Center, also FLAD to some degree, so which are research institutes, but also have a strong linkages with the policy domain, with practitioners, so also with a wider audience. So I think the ideal proposal for this award is really something that where you'll have some outputs that speak to your academic peers, but they also speak to wider publics that is engaged with maritime security in a wider sense, and that goes beyond also just the immediate countries or beyond Portugal, but has relevance for a larger field. And for this, you can just take inspirations into what are publications that have been published at the Atlantic Center, for instance, or at IDN in the field of maritime security. So this will already give you an idea of the broad spectrum of people that are participating, but also where outreach is happening. Impact is also something that is mutual. So it's I always find it useful in a proposal to not only say, okay, this is what I'm going to contribute to the Atlantic Center, but also, okay, what am I going to get out of it? So so why is it a useful step in my professional development to be part of this, and what will in what way will this help me in becoming a more mature researcher, in developing certain professional ambitions, etc. So it's a mutual thing that is reinforcing, and I think it's good to highlight that as well. So you have the scientific impact on the one side that is mutual, but you also have this societal impact, and to see, well, where am I also contributing to goals that are not just scientific, but that are broader, whether it's the UN Sustainable Development Goals, or whether it's some security ambitions from regional organizations, or whether it's policy, whether it's civil society, etc. So whether there's something where you contribute something that is larger than just that. And lastly, quickly, on implementation. So there are different aspects to this. I mean, one is really, as Sabrina just said, it's things as a budget. They don't have to be detailed. It's more about, well, that it becomes clear that you have already thought about this, that it's not just something that you're kicking down the road and you'll take off later, but you've already started thinking about it. So what does it mean if you're if you're currently, say, employed in a university or in public service, so what, how will they support you? How will your institution support you in carrying out this research? Are there specific activities where you're already engaged with reflection groups or research collaborations that you can make the best out of it? So there's different parts of implementation. There's these charts, a timeline chart with the milestones that Paula presented, so to show that, well, you've started thinking about how you're going to organize it, when what steps make sense. And last point on that is also to think about, well, are there some risks that you need to mitigate or to anticipate in a way? So especially if you do field work, for instance, this might be compromised at some point, depending on where you want to do it. So it's not that you will have the full solutions already in your proposal, but you can show that, well, I've started thinking about, well, I want to do this type of field work. There might be risk associated to it, and I already thought about, well, how can I mitigate it with complementing it with, say, with archival work or doing things from a distance if there are any problems to travel to the field. I'll stop here, and so we can move on to Q&A.
Thank you all very much for your very insightful presentations, and I'm sure this will be very helpful for everyone that's thinking of applying. I don't know if you prefer to read the questions yourself, or if you would prefer that I pose them. We already have one on the chat. Okay, so I'll just go ahead. We have Alberta Sagore asking, to clarify if conducting a review of existing practices will be considered for this category of research. Professor Paulo, you have your mic off.
We still cannot listen, Paulo. Just make sure that your mic is open, because it shows for us as it's closed. Something's going wrong. Maybe Rita can help and just open her mic.
Yeah, I'll try to do that.
You just tested everything before.
I can only mute people, not unmute them. So maybe try to
not unmute. Maybe Paula, what do you think about going out and then being again inside the room? Yeah, maybe that's better. I think you should just cancel there in the red button and then be back, because sometimes the system go. It often happens with Teams in my experience. So would you like to say something, Frank, about the question? Maybe while Paula can go. Go through the problem. Would you like to say something about the review?
Sure, I can. I can briefly. I think this is the review of existing practices can be really good, very useful starting point. So it's certainly something that is that can be a part and even a central part of a research proposal. Then there's one step more that will probably be expected. So if you do review, say, the existing counter-piracy practices of in a certain area or by certain actors, then this is this is a central empirical part, but then the question remains: okay, why do we need to review them? According to which angle are you gonna look at them? What is the actual question that you want to answer by reviewing them? So just reviewing them is in my view at least not a sufficient task, but it can be a very important task in order that allows you to enable and to say, well, after reviewing, we find that there's inconsistencies that explain why certain things have not been working, or there's contradictions between different practices, and then to try to explain why this has not worked then in the end. So
yes, I agree
short,
with you,
yes,
Ben.
but not. Yeah, go ahead, Sabrina.
You know, I really agree with you, Frank, and I'll just make a suggestion. So if reviewing existing practices may lead you to organize your data in terms of, a bank of data, a data bank in which you can also use it as an output. You may also kind of offer some sort of typology in which you can make conclusions from the practices. So may the literature fit or not fit to the practices is just you've just organized it, and so maybe it may be a useful output or in terms of the conclusions you can offer to the public. So if you can build upon your data and see how it organizes the scene, and comparing to the whole scene that may appear from the literature, then you may also give the public and give the Atlantic Center some sort of innovation or innovative view of on the scene. So reviewing the practices may lead you to create some sort of very innovative arguments, and that's the good point to reach out. So Paula, would you be able to talk? We're still struggling with them.
I would recommend that Professor Paula leaves the session and enters again, because it might be a technical issue. I didn't want to expel her.
I'm not sure if she can listen to us, because it seems to be that she's frozen. I'm not sure if you see the same way. Oh, she's leaving, and for sure she can be back. So maybe we can go through the second question, and then we'll be back to her to answer the two questions. Yes, Rita?
Yes.
So maybe we can go through Danilo. Would you like to read out loud?
Yes, so we have Dr. Danilo here, saying that one of the main challenges for scholars in the Global South is to understand how to set up budgets for international research grants given by Northern institutions, and is asking if the budget has to reflect the use of the 20,000 euros granted to the selected researcher for the whole duration of the research. So I don't know if any of you knows how to answer this question, but you also have here Professor Licínia Simão, the coordinator. So if she wants to say something, I'll open the floor to her as well.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to answer that, but I will need a few seconds, because I need to check what the editorial actually says regarding the detailed information on the budget. If it doesn't refer to that, then we actually don't need to know how you will spend your money. The money is for you to do the research, and the indicators that we established and that are clearly outlined in the editorial are the ones that we are interested in. So I would say, and I think Frank's experience would perhaps confirm that, you will manage that money as you see fit, as long as the outputs that are listed are produced. So in that sense, it gives you quite a bit of freedom to manage those funds as you would like. But perhaps Frank can share with you his terrible ongoing experience with us.
Oh, sure, sure. I add. I think I can reassure Danilo here that compared to many other funding schemes, here the bureaucracy and the accounting, etc., is comparatively very light. So I think it's still useful in your proposal to demonstrate that you've thought about it. Okay, what implications does it have if I come from the global south and I want to go to do field work, say in Lisbon, because relevant information is there. How much time will it take? How much of the budget will it also consume, etc. So it's good to think about it, but more in terms of feasibility, in terms of showing that, well, what you plan of doing is reasonable and fits into that, but it's not so much into that you have to account for how much euro will be spent on this and that. So it's really just about, well, it's something that you have thought about already now, and it's not something that you say, well, this I'm going to worry about later and then fix it when if I get the award or not, but that you already start doing it now.
I see that Paula is back, so maybe Paula had some adds to the first question and the second one, because Paula, if you can reach out to the chat. Oh, you still cannot open your microphone. Yes, try that. Yes, you almost, yeah. No?
Yeah, I'm just saying that I wasn't in, so I didn't hear the question, so we can move on.
No, yeah, we can listen from you. So maybe you can reach out the questions in the chat so that you can be back and see. So we just answered during this time Alberta's questions and right after the budget question from Danilo. So those are the only ones we just add some thoughts on. So yes, Rita. So.
So now we have another question, just to confirm, from Marco Mersili, if the 20,000 euros is only for research expenses and not for the researcher's salary itself. And
I guess I can take that one. Again, you are not required to do the research project in exclusive terms. That's not the right expression, but to say that you can do the research project while working elsewhere, while taking on other responsibilities. So the 20,000 aren't really assigned to specific expenses or a salary. It's really for you to manage how you need to use the money. I think it has more to do with how that money can help you advance the research in ways that you wouldn't be able to do if you didn't have that money. So I think the jury will appreciate to know that that money is really allowing you to have access to experiences, to networks, to products that otherwise you wouldn't be able to have. So it's a matter of having that investment, let's say, reflected in the research project that you are proposing. Of course, we know people need a salary to live off, so we don't really want to see a project that we feel that the 20,000 euros have been spent. That's not what I'm saying, but in a way, how that investment in your research abilities is allowing you to take a step further that you wouldn't take otherwise.
May I jump in here just for a second? Yeah, one of the things is, imagine you are making a proposal that you want to do, I don't know, a literature review in depth on a topic that is relevant for the Atlantic Center, but you're going to be wherever you are, just assessing things online and doing that research. I think the jury would look at it and say, okay, it could be very interesting, but you don't need the 20,000 to do that. Unless you're going to buy 20,000 euros on books, right? So the thing would be that your project should show that you need the 20,000 to do field work, to go to conferences, to participate in networks, to actually disseminate your work. I don't know, imagine you write something in Portuguese and you want to put the translation of that policy brief to the various languages that are spoken around the Atlantic. And therefore, that is something that you need money to do extra your salary to live. So yes, you need to live, but I think the jury would appreciate that you include activities for which you usually wouldn't have the money to do. And this enables you to do that, be it on the field work, like actual research, collecting information, getting to people, getting to documents that are locked up in an archive somewhere that you actually have to physically go there because it's not digitalized or whatever. But at the same time, also outreach activities. There is a summit on a topic that is important for the Atlantic Center, and you propose to go there and share your findings or engage with the audience there, and you need money to do that. So that would be something that could be interesting, I think, from the point of view of whoever is assessing your proposal. But you don't have to give an exact budget, to go to Lisboa, I need this amount of money. It wouldn't be like that, like I think Frank was saying. It is more to show that your activities imply this extra money that you usually wouldn't have. And of course, as somebody was saying about the salary, you also live of it, of course. But if you're proposing something that you're just going to live off the 20,000 for the 9 months locked in an office, I think the jury would not consider that, the best or the most exciting and relevant proposal.
One of the things that we could cite is that we are also prepared to receive questions in Portuguese, because we know that the call is both in Portuguese and English. So we are able to translate to Frank if needed, but he can comprehend very well Portuguese. So also if you can write down in the chat, we can also be able to, we are also able to answer your questions in Portuguese. Yes, Rita?
So we have another question, and that information is unedited, but I'll just read it out loud as well. Alberto Saigo would like to confirm if the applications are open to applicants from West Africa.
Let me clear that. It's open to everyone. The editorial sets 3 criteria. You must have a PhD for no longer than 10 years. Applicants must provide evidence of having conducted independent research of high quality, and the research projects to this grant must fall under the general category of security and defense in the Atlantic. So the scope is set by the topic that you decide to study, not where you live or you are from. So happy to have a lot of applicants from West Africa joining us, for sure.
I would just like to add, you can also pose your questions in Portuguese, like Professor Sabrina just said. And I would also like to encourage you, if you have any idea of what the project, if you're applying for the prize, and if you have any projects ideas, to maybe share your ideas, and maybe we can develop them a bit better and use that session for that. And we actually have, well, yes, this is a technical issue. It's not quite a question, but if the budget is transferred.
Okay. Let me try to get this one from Ricardo. It's a scholarship, so you don't have a receipt you have to pass. That's a scholarship like FCT scholarships, the National Foundation for Science and Technology. It's not taxable. And the project needs to be developed for 9 months in the year 2023. So you need to choose 9 months out of the year 2023 in which you will be developing the project. It needs to be completed in those 9 months. Yes.
Okay, we also have a question in Portuguese. I'll translate that so Frank can also answer. It's about the structure of the proposal. And Paula Silveira asks if it has to contain, it has to have the goals, the well, I forgot the word for this in English.
Milestones,
Marks.
the milestones.
The milestones, exactly. Thank you very much. Milestones, results, the calendar, and also the work, field work. And she's asking if it should contain something else as well.
I mean, I would refer to what Frank said in his presentation. I mean, you should have a small literature review about, you know, how to contextualize your topic and the research question, like what is the angle, the issue you want to address. These specific things, you know, goals, milestones, outputs, whatever, are elements that should be there, right? Mentioned, but this should be a project that is coherent from the beginning to the end. I think Sabrina also talked about an abstract. I mean, from the abstract to the end, there should be coherence in terms of your angle of analysis, what you already know about the topic, so what others have said about it, and how you want to go and develop your research. But Frank, maybe you can share how you structured yours, since it is a winning one.
Yeah, no, there's really not too much to add. I mean, I mean, Paula, the question from Paula like enumerates like, okay, these are the things that have to be there. So this needs to be also clearly accessible for the reviewers when they do the evaluation. Okay, they want to make sure that there are the objectives that are clearly mapped out in the milestones, etc. But beyond that, even if it's not compulsory like Professor Paula said, to have a literature review, I think it's strongly recommended that you have one, even though it's not it's maybe not explicitly mentioned. But this is in the part which I would put under, say, research project, research excellence. So where you demonstrate that what you're doing is really a contribution. There's an innovative element to it, and there are different ways to demonstrate it. So I wouldn't say that, well, you need to have this specific structure and this one only, but you need to find a way where you're able to convince the reader, okay, this candidate has really thought about how can I add to the ongoing research, and it's something that is credible, that is convincing in the way you will carry it out. So it needs to be like Professor Paula said, like from the beginning to the end. It needs to be somewhat a convincing story in a way that it makes sense and that all hinges together. So it's really the whole package that counts.
Thank you very much. Would anyone like to add anything? Okay, so I think we can move on to the next question. Another technical question. So we have Aldino Manuel dos Santos asking in his case if he can apply, since that he has a PhD that was made in 2009 in territorial engineering. So it's more than 10 years old, and he also has a PhD which he finished last year in international relations. So if you could apply considering his situation.
So that's a bit of a pickle. Thank you for the question, Aldin. I would leave that to the jury. I think the editorial is not clear in that regard. But I would say that perhaps the PhD in international relations is perhaps more relevant to your research project than the previous one. So I would be, if I was in the jury, I would be tempted to consider your second PhD, which is something that very few people tend to do, 2 PhDs. So I don't think we thought of that when we designed the editor. There's a note for the next edition to clarify that. I can't be 100% certain on how the jury would see this. And I think they should be, they should assess that themselves. But I would, if I was in the jury, I would be tempted to consider that your latest PhD, because that's the one that is actually more relevant to the topic of the award. I hope that helps.
Well, we don't have any questions for now. So once more, I would advise everyone, if you have a research project in progress, please let us know. Maybe for that function, you can also use the mic and just speak directly. It might be easier to explain. So maybe our professors can help you develop that and maybe give you some suggestions if that's what you would like. So please, everyone, go on, write questions, and you can speak if you want to.
We still have 30 minutes to do it, almost. So make sure you have this opportunity.
No ideas? Não há ideias para partilhar?
Okay, so I would ask on the people present on this call, who is actually seriously considering applying to the award? You might raise your hand or something, just so we can have a measure and maybe think about how many people are interested and how many are just, well, in the session to clarify some questions and maybe for future editions of the project. Oh, very good. So would anyone have any say, maybe a team or an idea they would like to share or maybe ask?
I'm really sorry. I was offline a bit, and I think Rita was kind of asking me to step in because I had a phone call coming in. So thank you, first of all, to our wonderful collaborators, Paula Duarte Lopes, Sabrina Medeiros, and Frank Matais, for being so generous with your time to help us set up this session. I think it was really useful and helpful to participants or future participants. We just a note on why we decided to set up this this session. We really wanted to contribute in a way that could level the playing field to those who perhaps have less experience in applying this or have doubts, and we hope to continue this support mechanism, let's say, to the award, perhaps, who knows, next year with more time and people, and we can actually accompany the design of some of the projects that require that. We would be very happy to support researchers who have good ideas in making sure their applications are competitive. So that was the general idea of this session. Thank you for your interest. And I hope to have a lot of your applications coming in and making the work of the jury really hard, because they would be very competitive and interesting. So thank you very much for your time and for your interest in our work.
And before we leave, we would actually have someone who would like to share a project. Please, Alberta, you might go on. Well,
maybe Alberta is having the same problems as Paula. Let's see.
well, if you want to write, that's also an option. If not, well, I think if we don't have any more questions, we might finish the mentoring session. Oh, yes, please.
I think Paula, right?
Yeah, Paula, please go on. You can use your mic if that's possible.
Wait, she got out. She's coming back in.
Sorry.
We hear you.
Sorry, I disconnect. Sorry. Are you listening to me correctly? Okay, I just have one question about the subject, the topics, because one of the topics is the relation between environment, sustainability, and the development. And for me, this is a subject a little bit out of the normal subject when we think about maritime security. This is the traditional way. So this part that is for me the most interesting makes me some kind of I don't know exactly how we can do that relating to the security, because we have to relate to the security and be as security as the others. You understand? Like a bit strange to explain that in English, but the idea is more or less that. Could you help me in somehow? Thank you.
Yes, sure. I mean, I can share a little bit. When we talk about environmental sustainability and development, I mean, you could think from the point of view of economic security, for instance. You can also think from the point of view of environmental security, for instance. But you can also link it to more traditional areas of security if you think along stability. So that, you know, if you talk about development and you have situations that are more underdeveloped and therefore they contribute to instability, either in certain countries or in certain groups of countries or in certain regions, you can link it to more traditional understandings of security. But all of them, you can go from land to coastal areas to the ocean itself and think of security in those terms. I don't know if that helps, but if you think of human security, inside that concept, you can find these different sort of lines and dimensions within which you can engage with. This would come from, you know, from the 1990s when the concept of security was a little bit more opened up. To go beyond the traditional security just of state and think also of people, of links to development, environment, well-being, livelihoods. I mean, you can go all the way to a more constructivist approach, you know, of livelihoods and all of that, and how that promotes human security and therefore also the national security, the regional security, the Atlantic security. I don't know if that helps, but if you go along human security, I think you are able to find connections to this line between development, environment, and sustainability within the Atlantic. I don't know if my colleagues agree or you know.
Yes, no, absolutely. I would also agree. Like, so taking an approach of human security opens a lot of windows on that nexus. Specifically, you can both go on something very specific, like say pollution, maritime pollution, or illegal waste dumping. These kind of things, they have a security dimension because it's also security forces that are dealing with these. But even on a more larger scale, if you talk more, say, about climate change and about global warming, what impact does it have on currents in the Atlantic, and then what impact does it potentially have on the Atlantic as a security zone also? Or if you take the loss of biodiversity, fishing vessels have to go out further. This brings up competition between different countries, and so there's a lot of factors that either really directly but also indirectly affect security in a broader sense.
Thank you very much.
Let me just add something. So Paula and Frank were you know very tight, very tight on the question. Very, you know, how can I say, comprehensive, and I understand completely the question, because it's not always clear how environmental can fit not only through the environmental security you know paradigm, but also considering, and I'm sure that the call fits into it, considering the interdisciplinary focus of the discipline. So you may lead to studies about complexity. You may lead to studies on climate change and climate security. You may lead to energy security themes or scarcity as a way to promote change in terms of the social values, within the Atlantic community and partners and members. Also, you can go through violent conflicts around the environmental scarcity, for instance, and how does damage in general, in terms of the living populations inside the oceans, but also through international law, such as the UNESCO marine planning, marine spatial planning, marine spatial planning regulation, and sort of comparable ways to fit to those requirements when it comes to compliance to international law and regimes. So it may also talk about international regimes and how the Atlantic community is behaving towards the environmental impact policy agenda. So I think it's really, a great sort of, as Frank said, great window of opportunity to enhance our understanding, our own understanding of the way Atlantic security should be brought, should be, developed. So Paula also talked about the critical literature around the environmental issues, and it's important that we can consider the literature behind and how those development had been affecting the agenda inside and outside those Atlantic states. So also Lucina can add something about it. You raised your hand? Yeah.
Yes. So I was perhaps just willing to clear something that I think, Sabrina, you kind of alluded to, is that although this is focused on the Atlantic, this is not necessarily focused on maritime security. So it's security dynamics that affect the Atlantic region. If you think of the connections between transnational organized crime or environmental events, and how communities inland are affected, or how conflicts are being fed by the criminal activities that happen at sea. So we invite people to, of course, address issues of maritime security if that's what they are interested in, and or other issues that relate to the ocean itself. But think of the concept of Atlantic security as something that is being lived also and experienced inland by the communities inland, and many times with ramifications that start at the shores but go inland in Africa, in Latin America, everywhere in the four continents of the Atlantic. So I just wanted also to kind of get this idea out there that perhaps you're thinking of issues that you feel might not be spot on, but we might actually find them quite interesting, because as long as you explain and your project explains how these dynamics that you are analyzing are interconnected and affecting other parts of these communities sharing the Atlantic space, then they are relevant for this award and for what we are doing with this. I think Alberta finally is back.
Yes, I would say now, if you want to try again, Alberta, please go on.
Yeah, thank you very much. And I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I want to share a few ideas. I actually hold a PhD in integrated coastal zone management, but I have found myself recently involved in maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea. And I work with a non-governmental organization called the Gulf of Guinea Maritime Institute. And we are involved in advocacy, research, and capacity building. And we have put together a few ideas, which I felt would be interesting to put in for this challenge. The first is to do with conducting a maritime initiative audit, maritime security initiative audit, because of the various security challenges in the Gulf of Guinea region. We, over the years, I mean, with the piracy incidents and everything, there has been quite a number of initiatives from the various stakeholders in the region. And some of them were set up to address certain issues. To date, as to whether they have been able to, the implementation of those initiatives have been able to address the challenges is one thing. And as to whether the challenges are also overlapping, the initiatives, the objectives of the initiatives are overlapping, is another thing. And where there still are gaps that have to be considered, in case another country wants to jump in with another initiative, or the EU wants to launch another initiative, we want to be able to provide information on where the gaps exist. So that's the idea we had, and we decided to put together a series of activities to conduct this maritime security initiative audit. So we have set up the objectives of what we want to do, but the question is, to what end, does the whole idea extend to? And yeah, it's quite broad what we want to do. The initiatives are quite a lot. We want to start off by mapping out all the initiatives, understanding their objectives, what they seek to address, and launch the data search to understand where they have gotten to, what they have been able to achieve, what they have not been able to achieve, that sort of thing. So I'm just throwing it out there for you to assist in knowing what extents to go and how to, fine tune it a bit to make a good proposal. Yeah, thank you.
All right, maybe I can start, and then some of perhaps Sabrina, Paula, or Frank might want to jump in. First of all, thanks so much for sharing that with us. I think for those people who are working on the issues of maritime security and maritime security in the Gulf of Guinea, we are struck by the same need, which is to have situational awareness of how many projects, what kind of projects are ongoing, what they are achieving, and so on. So I shared on the chat also the latest report that the Atlantic Center published. Rita is actually one of the authors, and where we tried exactly to contribute to that objective is to map at least what the EU, as one of the biggest donors and capacity building actors in the region, is doing. And a second report is coming out with additional information also on bilateral projects that are ongoing. So if this helps the work that you are doing, Alberta, we're happy to share it with you as well. I don't know. It seems
certainly
like it seems like a big project with a lot of different elements that need to go into it. I would say that perhaps the scholarship could respond to a section of what you need to do, to have a dedicated researcher doing a part of the project that is a stepping stone for the rest that you then need to do, or is working side by side with other researchers that have funding or capacity from elsewhere. Then I think it could be feasible, because it seems to me that what you are doing is quite it's quite a big task in terms, because we know how much it is out there to map, to assess, to evaluate. So it's quite a lot. So I would perhaps suggest that by slicing the project into pieces that are still coherent, but could be developed almost autonomously, then it could become a very interesting application for this prize, yeah, for this award.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I jump in, maybe? Thank you, Luciana, for beginning the answer. So I would say, when it comes to maritime security, all sources of experiences from the practitioner side. If I understood well, you're in between the academia and as a practitioner and doing advocacy in the team. So I really would like to again to say that any sort of data collection that you may arise from your scholarship, in terms of making sure that people can have visibility of the overlapping frameworks that are in place, and how effectiveness could be approached in the scene when it comes to making some sort of suggestions after the project, so that you can enhance some of the skills and institutions in place, and at the other side could complement whenever there are gaps. So there are many initiatives that are trying to gather projects such as your idea is projecting, in terms of in terms of understanding that maritime security is kind of a consequence of the effectiveness of complementary initiatives throughout the Atlantic. So whenever you want to make them visible and make them visible in terms of what side they overlap and in what side they just cannot cover, I really think this is very much appreciated. And I would say last, not only the outputs or the outcomes that you may produce may be interesting for the Atlantic Center, but also to permit new studies such as yours to do it in comparison, or to go through your study and then complement it. So I think that it's a very good idea, and also to fit it and make sure that you can also look for a very specific side of your whole idea, so it may be more useful, and in terms of the way you can comply with it after 9 months, it's more feasible to consider just a part of this, as Lucina just said.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Frank, maybe you have something to add?
No, I think the essential things have really already been said. So I think it's a really exciting topic, and also very fitting. The challenge will be to shoehorn it a bit into something that is doable, and to pick the elements where you can make most of the difference, so not to get lost in trying to cover too much ground, but really to identify, okay, this is something where I can really add a bit of knowledge that is really needed, and that can then be applied. So, but otherwise, topic-wise, I think it's definitely appropriate.
Okay, so we're reaching the end of our time. Do we have any more questions? I guess not. So I'll pass the word then to Professor Luciana Simão.
I think I've done my pitch. So good luck to all. Keep in touch if you have extra doubts. We're happy to help you with them as well as we go on, as you develop your project. Perhaps Rita, we can share the email of the Atlantic Center in the chat so that questions can come in, and we'll try to help as much as we can. So thank you for your interest, and Rita, it's up to you.
Writing the email. Okay, so you have the email there. You may pose every question you have. And thank you all very much. We will send, I believe we can send everyone the video from the session in case you missed everything. And yeah, thank you very much for coming, Professor Paula, Professor Sabrina, Dr. Frank, and all of the participants, and also for thinking and applying to the FLAD Security Award. We hope we get your proposals, and looking forward to hearing from you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and good luck for everybody, to everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Bye-bye.